Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Academia and Research Collective. My name is Darren, and today on Research Bites, we will be talking about the hypothesis. So let's get straight into it. First of all, why do we have a hypothesis? Well, the reason we do is because a hypothesis gives your research direction, right? After you ask a research question, you have to form a hypothesis, which will then inform how you do your experiments. Now, in the future, I'll be doing a video going over the engineering goals of an engineering project, and so stay tuned for that. But for those projects that aren't an engineering project, you will need a hypothesis. Your research question means that you ask a hypothesis, and your hypothesis tells you what you need to experiment in order to exactly solve your hypothesis. Now, what is it exactly? Well, your hypothesis is a testable statement that predicts the relationship between two variables. These relationships are, I like to think of it as cause and effect. What do I mean by cause and effect? Well, here's an example. If students drink coffee before studying, then they will recall more work because coffee increases alertness. The cause is drinking coffee, and the effect is that they'll recall more words. And so that's what a hypothesis is. And also this hypothesis is very obviously testable, and there's a relationship between two variables, and that is the coffee, and that is recalling more words. Now, what is the format? Well, what I recommend that everyone do for the format of the hypothesis is this. If independent variable, then your dependent variable will change because scientific reasoning. Think back to our introduction research series. The independent variable is the thing that you are changing, the dependent variable is the thing that you are measuring, and then the scientific reasoning is, of course, the reasoning behind it. Using the coffee example, right? Independent variable is the coffee, right? You're drinking coffee, not drinking coffee, how much coffee you're drinking. That's the thing that you're changing. The thing that you're measuring, or the dependent variable, is the recalling more words. And then lastly, the scientific reasoning is because caffeine increases alertness. Now, here are the three types of hypothesis. The first one is known as directional. Directional, here's an example, is that if students sleep 8 hours, then they will score higher on memory tests because sleep improves information consolidation. The reason it's called directional is because this hypothesis has very clear direction. Specifically, in the result, it's that they will score higher on memory tests. Right? They will score higher. Higher is a very directional. It is saying that your research will lead you to finding a result that will score higher on memory tests. A non-directional is kind of the opposite. If sleep direction changes, then test scores will differ because sleep likely affects cognitive function. Test scores will differ. We don't know if it's going to increase a little, decrease a lot, maybe increase by this percent or decrease by this specific amount. There's not a direction to it. That's why it's non-directional. And lastly, there's the null hypothesis. And this one is, if students sleep 8 hours, then their test scores will not change because sleep has no measurable effect on memory. Their test scores will not change. The hypothesis is predicting that something will not change. Null means nothing, not changing, right? So that's what, so those are the three main types of hypotheses. Now, here are some examples. First one, biology. If fertilizer is added to the soil, then plant growth will increase because nutrients support cell division. This is an example of a directional hypothesis because plant growth will increase is what we're predicting, and it's in biology. Another one is psychology. If people meditate daily, their stress levels will not differ because meditation has no real impact on cortisol levels. Stress levels will not differ. This is a null hypothesis because we're predicting that something will not change. And lastly, in computer science, if we use data augmentation, then model accuracy will improve by 10% because diverse data helps prevent overfitting. If the hypothesis was, let's say, model accuracy will change, then that will be a non-directional. But if we specify model accuracy will improve by 10%, that's a directional improvement. This is why this is a directional hypothesis in the realm of computer science. Now, the number one mistake I see people do when they write hypothesis is that they do not have a scientific reasoning, and it's also not testable. A bad hypothesis would be pollution is bad. That's very, very bad. However, if we give it some scientific reasoning and we give it something measurable, we could create something like, if air pollution increases, then children's lung capacity will decrease because pollutants damage respiratory tissue. The thing that is the scientific explanation is the pollutants damage respiratory tissue. The thing that we're measuring is children's lung capacity, and we're saying that if air pollution increases as the thing that's changing. And so this is why I encourage you to always use the if, then, because format, because it forces you to give a scientific reasoning and to give something that's measurable. And this is the number one mistake I see people making. So yeah, that's all it for us here today on Research Bites on the Academia Research Collective. Hopefully after watching this, you'll have a pretty good idea of how to write a good hypothesis, exactly what it is, and what type of hypothesis you will need for your research project. Thank you very much for watching Research Bites on the Academia Research Collective, and I'll see you next time.